So, Jim, tell me a little bit about an early quick step to get started with planned giving.
What I recommend is to, on your giving card, make sure you have a note that says, please check off here. It can be online, obviously, or in paper form. Please check off here if you have already made a planned gift to the congregation. And then a second line, check off here if you would like more information about planned giving opportunities.
Now, what do you do once you have that information? I mean, you've started asking people if they'll tell you whether they're planning on doing something in planned giving. What do you do with that?
So it's a parallel track, and it's what I would call the trust building stage. You add knowledge, you do some immediate work, and then you have a trust building stage. And the main way that congregational leaders can build trust is to put in place endowment and gift acceptance policies. Now, this does not mean, Cynthia, that you must already have money in your endowment. Even before you have a dime of any assets like that, you should put in place endowment and gift acceptance policies, because what those do is they guide leaders on how to oversee those gifts, how to invest them, and most importantly, how to build trust among the members of the congregation, because you are specifying how you're going to handle those gifts. All right. The other aspect is you are building a sense of guidance for donors, because donors will know how a gift will be handled, but also what types of gifts are the best for them to give to your congregation.
So, I'm a church leader, and we don't have a gift acceptance policy and we have never set up an endowment or don't have an endowment
Mhm.
policy. What do I do?
Well, the easiest thing, quite honestly, would be to contact me here at the Episcopal Church Foundation. We're happy to work with individual congregations on setting up endowment and gift acceptance policies based on our best practice policies that have been adapted through the years. So that is the easiest way. There are other ways, of course. You could certainly compare yourselves to other nearby congregations, download those sorts of templates from other sources on the internet. But the key factor here is you want the vestry, the main leadership of your congregation, to be behind this effort. And that is why when you use the Episcopal Church Foundation policies, those are vestry resolutions. We know the Episcopal Church well, and we know that you must have those key leaders not only understanding the importance of putting these policies in place, but actually to have supported by approving those policies.
So, you go through the process with the vestry to discuss and
Mhm.
develop your own gift acceptance policies and endowment policy.
Yes, should all be in one document, right?
Okay.
In
Okay.
addition, what we recommended is a part of our policy is at the back of it. We actually have templates for you to fill in the different funds that you may have. Some parishes may already have some funds that exist as either true or quasi endowments, and they need to track those. But it's key that they need to understand the origin of those funds so they know what the donor specified when she, and it often is she who gives the gift, what she intended.
And this is a way that going into the future, you're going to have a record and you're going to go through the process of understanding, why that gift came in and where it goes.
Correct. And we won't go into the past in the Diocese of Newark, but it's a really good thing that you have records in place, clarity about policies, so that it guides leaders in the future for how they should invest it, how they should oversee it. But most importantly, all of this goes back to trust, because you're seeking to build trust among your donors so they know how a gift will be treated, how it will be maintained, and that trust will enable a donor to be more generous. It also will guide the donor. It guides the donor on what's appropriate, and hopefully will guide the donor on not making an overly restricted gift, an anachronistic gift that the parish cannot use. as well as they could have if it were unrestricted.
So tell us a little bit about, I think you mentioned before that some churches might have separate funds already set up, or what are some funds that if a vestry is new to this and they're thinking through this process, what are some ways that they might want to think about how those funds would be set up?
So this is something which we at ECF can help people think through because it will be unique to each parish. On the whole, generally, you want to have as much of an unrestricted endowment where the parish has the freedom to use those funds for the future mission and ministry of the congregation without being restricted. However, many congregations feel it is better to have clear funds up front as well as an unrestricted fund. So things that may always be needed within our Anglican tradition, that you would want to have a building fund. Whether or not you would rent your building in the future or not, different issue, but it would be source of funds for that. You may have music. We will always, I hope and pray to God, always have music. And hopefully also maybe a Christian spirituality or Christian formation fund, those sorts of things. But the danger is you don't want to pigeonhole only certain things. So you want to be flexible. You want to encourage your donors to leave as many unrestricted gifts as possible. But the only way you achieve that is by building that level of trust and confidence in the leaders, regardless if the leaders change over time.
And unrestricted giving is also connected to, I guess I'd like you to talk about it in terms of the future focus again,
Yeah.
right? We're talking because we want people to, as they set these programs up, to understand that planned giving is about the future.
So that's all true. Endowments are future focused, just like planned gifts. And the reason is if you want to demonstrate to your donors that you have a future, that you trust in your own future as a congregation, you will put in place an endowment and gift acceptance policies because that demonstrates to your constituents, to your parishioners, to others who may support the congregation, that you have a future, you have a plan, you're focused on this. And so planned gifts are the main source for building endowments over the long term because they match up so well, because they are typically for the future. They're meant to last in perpetuity, as well as just that nature that the person giving it wants it to last for the future mission and ministry of the congregation.
What is the role? I know we've talked about the vestry and their responsibility for setting up the parameters of this program. What's the role of the clergy?
So I will be inclusive in this way. Leadership is key. It is key when you are building up a planned giving effort. And quite honestly, one of the biggest obstacles, I hate to admit it, as I love clergy, is that the clergy can be more of an obstacle sometimes and stop a program from moving forward. And so it is essential that your priest in charge, your rector, your vicar, whoever you have in that role is supportive and has a basic understanding. They don't need to understand everything. That's okay. But they do need to have a basic understanding that this is a part of their role as a clergy person within the Episcopal Church. And if you find that your priest doesn't think he or she is supposed to be doing this, you as a leader can turn to page 445 of our Book of Common Prayer and demonstrate that there is the absolute clearest direction on that rubric that they must raise awareness about planned giving to the members of the congregation. That is a part of their duty. And quite honestly, should be a part of the joy of them being able to continue ministry well into the future, even if times change for your congregation, to have flexible funds that are unrestricted in the future that can be used for a variety of ministries is exactly what we need in our Episcopal churches today.
What are ways that the clergy would show that they support planned giving? What are
Well,
specific things that they
yeah.
should do?
So one, without a doubt, they should preach from the pulpit, saying that this is an important step for them to take. All right. Because, so I won't go into all of that. That's more of a complex issue, but they need to be able to preach about it. They need to be able to call people into considering what their uh, wishes are at the end of their life. It's not just about the money, it's about how they wish to be treated medically, the kind of funeral they want, all of those issues of end of life plans. And this should be a part of their ministry of planned giving to the congregation. So preaching, teaching, raising awareness, and the key factor, which I encourage all clergy to do, is empowering lay leaders to do this work, because it is lay leaders who actually bring this forward. And I know I want, I want to say a few things about lay
I
leaders.
do. I want you to,
Uh,
yeah. So
but
you
one
want,
quick
but
note, let me just,
clergy, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
so one extra quick note is to make sure that as soon as the congregation learns that someone has raised you to the level of family in their estate plans, the rector, your priest in charge, whomever the person is who is in charge of your parish, make sure they write a handwritten note to that individual. The handwritten note is something that's rarely done nowadays and will demonstrate to the donor that your priest, your rector understands how important this gift is, because it's so rare to get a handwritten note. And they can use my phrase that I've said already, raise the parish to the level of family. It's an easy note to write, but one that will make a huge difference in initially building this relationship, because planned giving is all about relationships for the long term.
So just to play that back, what you're saying is, as churches add that little question onto their giving card, their pledge card, and they get it back, and there's a check mark that says that that person has in fact considered the church or included the church.
Mhm.
What you're saying is
Immediately.
immediately after that, it doesn't just go in a file.
No,
The clergy person writes a handwritten note thanking that
absolutely.
person.
Absolutely. And I fear many Episcopalians fear the Holy Spirit is going to do their data entry for them. Make sure that whoever is in charge of that will do the data entry into your records for that person, whether they have done that planned gift and finished it, or if they just want more information, record that. The Holy Spirit will not do your data entry for you. It is up to you. She is far too busy.
So two pieces of information. You need to know whether a person has already made that commitment or if they want more information. So speaking of more information, tell us a little bit about the role of the lay leader and
Yes.
empowering the lay leader, and uh, how volunteers in the congregation are important in making this go forward.
So Cynthia, excuse me, how committed I am to lay leadership within the Episcopal Church. And planned giving is a key place for lay leaders. We recommend at the Episcopal Church Foundation that you seek to find at least two. If you can only start with one, that's fine. Start with one and seek a second one eventually. But you need planned giving shepherds, the person who's going to nudge this effort forward slowly and surely. These folks do not need to be attorneys. They do not need to be CFPs. They need to be dedicated to the parish and its future. And they need to be people who are willing to work with others and move this effort forward. So that planned giving shepherd should not be the rector. It should not be the current church warden or treasurer. And it should be someone who has the time and the energy to learn more about planned giving. They don't need to be experts, but they do need to know a little bit, and they need to move that effort forward. We recommend that they become the point people at the parish for educating in small ways about planned giving, sharing resources, and putting things in place so that people in the parish become aware. The main role of the plan giving shepherd is as an awareness raiser, not a plan giving expert.
I think that's very important that that person, because I think probably we have churches who think, we don't have we don't have estate attorneys, we don't have accountants
Right.
who, know about planned gifts and are going to be experts. We're not suggesting anyone is providing professional expertise.
Correct. And thank you for mentioning that, because that's really important. Many times not having, it's great if you do have an attorney who has a passion for this, or a CFP who has a passion for it. It's great because they do have some of that knowledge. But be careful, because the role of the plan giving shepherd and anyone else involved in plan giving is not to give professional advice. It is to raise awareness. So you are always encouraging individual donors, before they finalize a planned gift, to consult their own professional legal, tax, and financial advisors to make their family aware of what they're doing, because you don't want to have that on the parish. The other reason why perhaps our wonderful attorneys and CFPs are not perfectly fitted, if they're still working in the business, it may be perceived that they're trying to seek new clients. And that's not what this is about. This is about saying thank you and demonstrating appreciation for those who've raised the parish to the level of family in their estate plans.
One thing I think that people, we mentioned this with the giving card, that they might be interested in just more information.
And
How
more
does it,
resources.
right? How does a church provide information, resources? How do the shepherds help people with more information?
So the shepherds should reach out to you, Cynthia, right? They should reach out to Cynthia. Cynthia has access to all of the many resources that the Episcopal Church Foundation does. You can also reach out to ECF directly. You can check out our website. We have been doing this work for the Episcopal Church since the mid-90s, when we took over this role from the church center. And we have developed a number of tools, and I'll just mention a few of them that are very useful for you to think about. Those are the Planned Giving on Demand Toolkit, the comprehensive toolkit with all of our printed and online resources. There is Funding Future Ministry, which is a book that's included in Planned Giving on Demand, but you could purchase it separately. And both of those resources, because they're so inclusive, do walk people through a process for getting this accomplished, for starting at zero and moving on and getting to another level. So there are many, many different resources that are immediately accessible, including booklets and brochures, which you can download for free from the Episcopal Church Foundation website, or you can order any of them, including the Plan Giving on Demand and Funding Future Ministry materials, from Forward Movement, who is our partner in distributing those materials. And that will guide your communications and marketing, if you will, effort within your congregation and get people set up. The first thing you should probably do after you have set up your pledge card and started to build trust through having the process for your endowment and gift acceptance policy started, is to just get a hold of some of the basic brochures on plan giving, just so that you could have it in the track rack at the back of the church, so that the secretary who may be reviewing the giving card, or whoever reviews the giving card, could simply see that someone wants more information and they could send them that immediate brochure. We're happy for you leaders at parishes to steal our text. And I'm still working on a project to enable you to just edit the documents directly, but you would have to buy special software to do that. But you can just copy the text from our PDFs that you can download and adapt that for your own, because planned giving is a very emotional experience. And therefore, it's important for the giver, the donor, to recognize that it is going to the parish itself. And so you can develop your own planned giving booklet or brochure based upon the material within hours. We welcome you to do that.
Yeah, I think that's something we should keep in mind, that churches want to make sure that this is their effort and not something that is, that isn't going to go directly to the parish. And
Right. We always want that to be encouraged. There are some special gifts, life income gifts, charitable gift annuities, charitable remainder trust, which the Episcopal Church Foundation, as the main resource, we specialize in that. So we have all
Mhm,
those programs in place. But
mhm,
that's not the vast majority. Those are cases where people want to make a gift, but they can't give the gift without giving up the income. And so they need to have income coming back to them. So
mhm.
that's something that the Episcopal Church Foundation is happy to work with individually for a donor. The plan giving shepherd, the priest, whomever does not need to specialize. They just need to know there may be people of more average means that can't give a significant gift now, but they want to. And so this is an option. They give a gift and receive income for the rest of their life. So contact us at ECF for more information on that.
Wouldn't you say, Jim, that there are two places that you should have sort of I think of a corner, a little literature area at the church, and your website as places for planned giving information about your parish to
Yeah.
exist? Can you
I
talk about those two places?
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this before. This is a really good idea to have materials always available somewhere in your congregation, wherever that fits for you. It's hard to say exactly where, it'll be different in each case, but wherever people are going to pass by, where they get other information, to have your own plan giving materials there, or those from ECF where you've marked contact the parish on them. That's great to have in a physical space. In electronic space, yes, absolutely. If you have a stewardship part of your website, you can have a tab that says planned giving. And what I actually recommend, because we provide this special website called episcopalgifts.org, which is free and available for all congregations and Episcopal entities to make use of. What you could do on your website, have a separate planned giving subpage, put a few notes about planned giving and whom to contact as the planned giving shepherd at the congregation, and then put a note there saying, and for more information about different types of planned gifts, because there's so many different types. And we recommend you raise awareness of all of them because people's needs change over time. You can just simply then put the link to episcopalgifts.org, and I know, Cynthia, you can put that out to the listeners of www.episcopalgifts with an
Mhm.
s.org, and it will not tell people to give to the Episcopal Church Foundation. It will say give to your favorite Episcopal charity or parish.
Right, good. Want to talk a little bit about having your correct legal name on the website?
That is a very, very important thing. When you are seeking to ensure that people give you a gift, both for current giving as well as for planned giving, you want to make sure you have a place on your website where you specify the legal name of your congregation. And you know what? Even if it's a little repetitive, put your address down too, just so that it's 100% clear. There are a lot of Christ churches, a lot of Grace churches. And you want to be specific so that people can make those gifts. You can also consider and put some information there if people are interested in making a current gift of stock. You could put some information, or at least say contact the church treasurer, the church secretary, to get that information. And more, Cynthia, you should be noting, since we have so many members in the Episcopal Church who are now over 72, that they can make their qualified charitable distribution from a traditional IRA directly to the church, and that will cover up to $100,000 their required minimum distribution from that traditional IRA. So something that a lot of parishes are getting more of today in current giving. But I will also say, if you get one of those gifts, Cynthia, please encourage all your leaders to make note that they received a gift of that kind, because that indicates that someone actually has a traditional IRA, and that's another planned giving opportunity where people can um, leave the residuum of their IRA to the congregation, and the congregation receives it completely tax-free without paying any of the deferred taxes.
That's great. It's important information for our churches to be able to provide people. Folks want that information,
And that helps build trust too.
right? So, one of the things I think that the shepherd and working with the clergy or working with other leaders in the church have to be thinking about are ways to raise up awareness throughout the year. So we talked about the giving card and we talked about having communications,
Communications plan.
right?
Yep.
Are there other ways that a church can raise awareness throughout the year?
So, I'm totally committed to one thing that I think solves a lot of problems all at the same time, and that is the Legacy Society. Now, there's no doubt you don't have to have a Legacy Society to have a planned giving effort. It is more important for you to be raising awareness, letting people know they can make these gifts, having in place those endowment and gift acceptance policies to raise awareness and raise that level of trust, no doubt. However, to sustain a planned giving effort through the years is best done, in our experience, by having a legacy society. Now, to be clear, a legacy society is simply an opportunity to say thank you to those individuals who have notified the parish that they've raised you to the level of family in their estate plan. You're never asking how much they're giving, ever, because you never want it to appear that you are trying to have an exclusive society. The big secret that not everyone realizes, it is not the wealthy who leave the substantial planned gifts. It is that group of people who are committed to the future mission and ministry of the congregation that leave a planned gift. And it's typically your average person, that person who's been holding on to their assets because they couldn't part with them while living, but at death, they do have the capability then to make a really significant gift. The wealthier members of your congregation are often pursued for those large gifts and major gifts and capital campaign. But when it comes to planned giving, every single person in your congregation should be invited to think about and consider making a planned gift. Not everyone will, but that's okay. But by having a legacy society in place and simply demonstrating that the parish wants to be in relationship and thank the members of the legacy society will actually drive your planned giving efforts for years to come. As I say, you don't have to have it, but it is the best way. And I can explain a little bit if that's okay,
Sure.
Cynthia. So what you need to be thinking of is how you can start this effort, and then how do you continue it? And to start this effort is simply to get going, do all the steps that we've talked about before, but then add one extra thing, and that is the leadership of the parish, your planned giving shepherd, should try and determine, is there about a year, maybe 2 years in the future, a seminal event, an anniversary event, something that is going to celebrate the past, the present, and the future of your congregation. If you can find something like that in the future, make that the inaugural date of your legacy society. Invite anyone from now up until that time of a year or 2 years in the future. If they commit to making or to setting up a planned gift for the congregation, they can become founding members of your legacy society. And that will help people get off the dime and actually do it, but not rush them, because that's important. You don't want to rush people through this. You want them to think about it. You want them to do what's best for them and their family, and to consult appropriate legal, tax, and financial advisors and let their family know that this was a choice. So that will get everything started. And many parishes do a good job at getting it started. The challenge is keeping it going. And what I recommend for a congregation Once they are getting ready for that inaugural date that they have picked, and by the way, if you don't have an anniversary coming up, just pick a date. Pick a date 1 to 2 years in the future, and that's the date that you're going to stick with, and that's what you're going to go to. So, as you're leading up to that date, maybe 6 months or whatever the timing would work for you as a planner at the congregation, make sure that the next Legacy Society event gets on the calendar for the following year, and make that a practice so that year after year after year, each of these thanking events, and they can be totally conformed to the culture of your parish, with a cocktail hour or a dinner or a potluck or simply a reception following your annual meeting, whatever is appropriate for you. But it's that annualness about it that you are thanking them year after year after year, because that maintains the relationship. It shows that what you're interested in is celebrating them and saying thank you to their commitment to the future mission and ministry of your congregation. And by making leadership accountable to doing that annual event year after year and planning it in advance, that will sustain your efforts into the future.
Jim, can you talk a little bit about who sort of the target audience for planned giving is? And when you answer that question, can you include certainly what you were just talking about with, because I think we have churches who believe that they do not have wealthy people in their congregations and they're not a rich church, and
Right.
therefore they don't need to do this.
And sadly, it's actually rich churches that struggle more with planned giving than average churches. It's a funny thing. But as I said before, it isn't the wealthy who give those significant planned gifts. And so for targets, right? I always say you should be raising awareness to everyone at the congregation, regardless of age or perceived circumstance, because anyone could make a planned gift. And it's not about the dollar amount that they'll eventually give. It's about recognizing that they feel so strongly about your future ministry that they're raising you to the level of family, and you get that opportunity to thank them while they're alive, right? So raise awareness to everyone. But there is no doubt there are some target ages. The target ages are between 40 and 60, and this has been proven by a lot of different surveys done at the Lilly School of Philanthropy and other places. It's during that 40 to 60 range where people are finally focused on, well, what do I want to demonstrate has been most important to me in my lifetime? People finally make their wills during that time, and for a lot of people, finally in their 40s and 50s, the kids have moved out of the house, or I hope they have by that time. And they can actually, a couple can actually focus on what is important to them and the legacy that they wish to leave behind. As I say, not everyone will make a planned gift. The largest number of gifts will come from your annual gifts. If you do a capital or a major gifts effort, it'll be a smaller number of your constituents. The smallest number will come from planned gifts, but that's okay. Those are also quite often the largest gift that anyone will give. But as I say, regardless of the amount, it's the opportunity to build that relationship and allow someone to be generous and philanthropic toward the future of your congregation.
Are there folks in, just because of the role that they've had? I mean, I have this belief that any church should, or any planned giving shepherd should be talking to former church wardens, people who have held positions like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So that's very true, Cynthia. And I know we've talked about this before, and I think you're absolutely right. The people that are going to be the most convicted, I would hope, about the congregation's future are those leaders who have been directly a part of forming its strategy for the future and being involved. And so, without a doubt, you should be inviting the main leaders, both past and present, to be thinking about a planned gift. One would hope that that would just be an assumed a thing you could assume. Regrettably, you can't assume, And you need to raise awareness to people about all the different types of gifts, because not everyone will need or want to do one gift over another. Some may do many. They may do charitable gift annuities. They may do a gift in a will or insurance or whatever. Others will only choose to do one or two because that is what's appropriate for them and their family. So invite everyone, but of course, your leaders should be the ones that are the most enthusiastic about the future mission and ministry. So there's no reason not to try and focus on them first. Why not?
One thing you've talked about in other circumstances is the opportunity to have sort of hold up models, right? Folks who have made a gift. Can you talk a little bit about that and how a church might do that?
So that's something I actually talk about a lot, which is making that testimony. Uh, I'm a high churchman, so testimony sounds very foreign to me, but I do it all the time.
Mhm.
And the reality is that is the element of what you want to try and capture. And you can capture it in many ways. You can capture it by simply holding a group together, maybe at an annual meeting, where you have one person come up and say to the congregation that's assembled there why they chose to make a planned gift. That is a great opportunity because planned giving is so emotional. It enables that person to give their testimony and probably move the hearts of others to consider for themselves what's appropriate. So that's a great live opportunity. Another great live opportunity is just to let things be on their own, and have people have pins. I don't have one on right now, but have a pin or some other symbol of your legacy society and encourage them to wear that often and allow them, when someone asks them, well, what is that pin all about? They can actually give their own personal testimony at that moment in time about why they've made this important gift. And again, be able person to person to hopefully move that other person's heart to think about making their own gift. And I can tell you, Cynthia, they will not talk about any tax advantages.
Mhm.
They will talk about the life-changing experiences they've had at that congregation. The third type is what we're doing right now, the recording, right? And one of the benefits of COVID is the ability to be comfortable with doing recordings and doing videos. I strongly urge everyone to start recording people doing these sorts of testimonies and start a data bank of those recordings so that you can use them for future opportunities on the website, playing it at a Legacy Society event or any other opportunity. But it can even be more expansive. There are so many wonderful people who pass away without ever having the opportunity of having a couple of minutes to get recorded about their experience in a congregation, that living history that can only be captured when you either capture them speaking or, in the modern age, capture them on video. And wouldn't that be wonderful to have a whole host, a whole collection of the most respected people at your congregation, even if they've passed away? You can even have that. And as I say, that can be a key factor in tying all this together, because that's what you're trying to do. You're tying all of this together into this emotional um, weaving so that people can demonstrate why they feel so strongly about the congregation and why they want its ministry to last into the future. Those are wonderful ministry opportunities. And that is also why many clergy should be supportive of all of our efforts, but sometimes they don't. I'm not sure always why. Sometimes they fear endowments, sometimes they fear that it's too grasping. But if clergy focus on the ministry aspect of planned giving and that it is truly their duty to do this, and to cultivate these sorts of relationships, I think they will be much more comfortable.
I think one way for me that I think about it is, there are those jokes about fundraising and development and stewardship. as if we're taking, right?
Right.
But
It's
in
an
the
opportunity for them to give.
and I think this gives a planned gift particularly, and especially when we talk about people being able to talk about their motivations, it gives people an opportunity to talk about what is important to them, that they
So
don't have that opportunity to share that necessarily. And it's a way of, of giving them
mhm.
that chance and for us to hear it and to learn from them, that shared experience.
I think that is crucial, Cynthia. And I just want to highlight to everyone who's listening to this webinar how lucky you are in the Diocese of Newark to have Cynthia doing this work, because she truly does understand all of it, from annual giving to major gifts to this type of giving that we're talking about, and the importance that it is all about personal experience, personal relationship. And it's a great opportunity to be able to do something like this with you, Cynthia. So